and standing with you. KBLA Talk 1580.
We going. My pants poster said, we going ultra. Yeah. We going ultra black. I got a toast to that. We don't fold the crack. We going. Occasion we rose to that. Going postal. We going ultra black. Watching the global change. Hop in the coldest range. Hit boy on the beat. This poster slap. We going ultra black. We going. Rhythm and blues, pop, rock, soul to jazz, till my toes attack. How I look being told, I'm not supposed to brag. Nobody fault, I tell the truth, I know what's facts. We ultra black, gray stone, skin tone.
KBLA Talk 1580, it is a Freedmen Friday. We do this every Friday, we talk reparations. Get a little smarter about what's owed to us, the debt that is owed to us. And I want to put this out there for those who tune in faithfully to Freedmen Friday and those who don't. Those who are reparationists and those who are not. If you have an idea, or someone you'd like to hear from in the reparation space, we probably are already trying to get them and they may not be responding to our calls. But if you do have a suggestion, I would love to hear it. You can DM me on any of our socials. Particularly, I'm responsive on Instagram, DiPrima Radio, DiPrima. We are at KBLA 1580. You could also email me, diprimaradio@gmail.com, diprimaradio@gmail.com. And that way, I would love to hear who you want to hear from about reparations. Agree, disagree, left, right, center, lineage, Pan-African, whoever they are, let's talk about it. We've gone through a lot of guests and some we've had on repeatedly, and I'm happy about that, but I'm always interested to know who you want to hear from. So DiPrima Radio, DiPrima, diprimaradio@gmail.com. Also want to quickly highlight the fact that I will be taking part in a panel tomorrow, Eaton Canyon Fire Legal Aid, What You Need to Know. It's actually a seminar, legal guidance, expert presentations, and Q&A. This is for victims of the Altadena, Pasadena fire. It's being brought to you by Brad Gage Law, APC, along with James Farr, who's a contributor here, and the Pasadena Community Coalition. It's tomorrow from 3 to 4:30 at the Pasadena Church, 425 North Sierra Madre Villa in Pasadena. And doors open at 2:30, so I'll see you there. Welcoming into this Freedmen Friday conversation, an organizer with Black Lives Matter LA and Black Lives Matter California. She leads the policy team, and she's a member of the Justice and Torrance Teams as well. Sheila Bates, welcome.
Good morning, Sister Dominique. Thank you for having me on the show.
Yeah, thanks for coming. I think when people think about Black Lives Matter, they don't think reparations. We think about people murdered by police and the kinds of injustices that we're going to see piling up or already piling up under the current administration, but we don't necessarily affiliate it with reparations. Tell me why reparations fits into the Black Lives Matter agenda.
That's a great question, and there's two things immediately come to mind. One is that we seek to end state-sanctioned violence, right? And if we think about the founding of this country, it was founded on two original forms of state violence. One was the genocide and massacre of indigenous people, and the other was the enslavement of Black folks, right? And the stealing of us from the shores of Africa and bringing us over here and enslaving us. The other thing is the fact that we have to remember that when we say that, and that's also connected to an economic form of violence, right? Because that has continued to affect all of us through various forms of economic policies and through everything, right? Because so there's reparations that are owed to us, not only because of the theft of our lives, of our ancestors' lives, and the theft of their labor, right, which built this country, but also the fact that there are vestiges of slavery that exist in every single system, from policing to prisons to child welfare to hospitals, right, and healthcare, and all of these different forms of violence. The other thing is the fact that we have to remember that there is a direct tie between policing, right, and what you mentioned earlier around the fact that that's what people immediately think of with Black Lives Matter, is the fact that we absolutely fight for those whose lives were stolen by state-sanctioned violence and by the police, but police hail from slave catchers. So there's a direct connection that exists between all of those things. And what we're seeing in our communities is a lack of resources that exists not only because the police steal the majority of the resources that are available through the city, the county, the state, and so on and so forth, right? But it's also the fact that our communities have been robbed of generational wealth that that white folks in particular have had access to. And so this is a part of the reason why it's something that we fight for, because it is a debt that is owed to us because of what our ancestors experienced, that makes it necessary that reparations be paid, and that they are long overdue.
Yeah. That's so many things in what you laid out there. I mean, when we talk about reparations, at least we've moved past only talking about it in reference to enslavement, but also to the harms and badges of Jim Crow, the theft of our thievery and of our generational wealth, our property, our businesses. But I don't know that I'd thought of it in relationship to the theft of life or the murder of our people at the hands of the state, whether it be through police violence or inside of the carceral system.
Yeah, those things are absolutely tied, right? We have to think about the fact that prisons around the country, right, many of them were actually former plantations. And we have to remember, again, as I mentioned, that, police were originally slave catchers. And so those things are absolutely tied, and reparations are owed to us not only because of that, the enslavement and the unpaid labor that the state owes and the federal government owes to us, right? But also the fact that these things have continued to impact our lives. And there's a reason why Black folks are oftentimes at the lowest of every socioeconomic and every other possible, statistic that you can look at. That's not because of the inferiority of Black people. We are brilliant, creative, powerful, resilient people. The reason why that happens is because of the systems that have been on our neck forever, for generations. And so that's something that's hard to pull out of. And we see that with redlining. We see that with the fact that when there was a housing boom, and when people, and by housing boom, I mean that not in the way that people normally think about it, but when most middle-class white people, when white middle class was being built, was when homes were being bought, right? And that was something that is a period that Black folks were left out of. And we were left out of it intentionally because they wanted to make sure that we didn't have access to that. And so they did that through various forms, including redlining. Policing was absolutely a part of that. Prisons was absolutely a part of that, because if we have our attention focused on other things, including the fact that our loved ones are incarcerated, we have less of the ability to access those resources and to be able to further our own generational and income, and that they did that intentionally. And so, I don't know how well I sort of connected those dots, but I hope that made sense.
Yeah, it makes sense. I think it's such a big debt and such a big terror, when you think of the theft of wealth, of land, of human beings, of equity, that educational opportunities, et cetera, et cetera. It's
Absolutely.
almost hard to get, one's mind around the whole debt, the whole
Absolutely.
impact of this. And in fact, I'm pretty sure we don't have it. When I was reading, I've been slowly working on reading the California Reparations Task Force report along with the Los Angeles one. The Los Angeles one, it's not even the executive summary that they put out, not even that long, but I have to read it slow because I have to read it again and again because there's so many things that I didn't know about that absolutely make sense. Such as I've mentioned, I believe it was either 14 or 16 KKK chapters within Los Angeles city, including a couple in Santa Monica. There's white supremacists here, but 16 KKK chapters, it just puts it in context when we talk about reparations in the debt that's owed, and knowing this is not just the Old South, this is a national problem, a national conversation, and it needs to be addressed on every level where the harms have occurred.
Absolutely. And, it's also the fact that, covenants that used to exist, right? It's also the fact of sundown towns, right? It's also the fact that there's direct ties that have been made over and over again between the police and the KKK, and the enforcement of Jim Crow laws, the enforcement of sundown town laws, which sundown town laws existed right here in California. We cannot pretend like California is not complicit and does not owe Black people reparations as well, because people seem to think that California entered this country as a free state, but that's not the whole truth, right? So technically, California entered this country as a free state, but the reality is that you could not buy or sell people, which is sick to say. But if you already, quote unquote, own somebody and you already enslaved somebody, you could absolutely bring them to California and force them to work for you for free. And we saw that create the economic opportunities for white people in California. So we can't pretend like California is removed from this, which a lot of people like to pretend like it is. A lot of times when I'm talking to people and I say reparations, they say, well, you live in California. No, and, your family lives in California. Correction. I was born in California. My father was born in Michigan, but also grew up in Indiana. And his parents were from Missouri and from Texas, right? And then from there, all of our family was in the South. And so it doesn't matter where I was born. I mean, it does, but it also is the fact that we have to look back generations upon generations, and the fact that California is absolutely involved in all of this.
Yeah, and not to mention the first governor of our state tried to ban Black people from the state altogether. I mean, that was a real thing. The first California governor, as part of the United States, tried to prohibit Black people from being here at all ever. So there's a lot, like you said, there's a lot more to it. I didn't realize so many of the gold miners, the so-called 49ers, were actually enslaved Black people. Didn't know that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Oh, that gold.
Yeah, that was.
Well,
yes, that was sort of the economic opportunities I was alluding to. Absolutely. Yeah. And let's name that specifically. It was absolutely the gold miners.
Yeah. We're talking with Sheila Bates. You were among those folks who went to the state capitol to lobby for reparations. Want to talk about that. Also, Jerry Anderson had a question in the chat. At the federal level, does the government pay one number for all, or does each department agency have their own separate responsibility when it comes to reparations? That's an interesting question that could be applied to the federal and state level. Look at some of those things and what policies you're tracking. I mean, you are on the policy team, so what reparations policies are you tracking, lobbying for, and advocating with Black Lives Matter? We'll look at all of that when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
She's reclaiming her time on KBLA Talk 1580. More First Things First with Dominique DiPrima when we come forward. Now that Donald J. Trump has begun a second term as president, please join the Empowerment Congress and KBLA Talk 1580 to examine the question, where do we go from here? Chaos or democracy? At the Charles R. Drew University of Medicine and Science. This Saturday, January 25th, some of LA's top elected officials, Representative Sidney Kamlager-Dove, Assembly members Isaac Bryan and Sade El-Hawari will be on hand for what promises to be a lively and informative conversation. Doors open at 8 a.m. The general session moderated by Tavis Smiley and and broadcast live on KBLA Talk 1580 begins at 9 a.m. The event is free, but seating is limited. Registration is required. Go to the Empowerment Congress website at www.empowermentcongress.org to register. Where do we go from here? Chaos or democracy? Join the Empowerment Congress and KBLA Talk 1580 this Saturday, January 25th. Doors open at 8 a.m. The free program starts at 9 a.m. Registration is required at www.empowermentcongress.org. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
If you're living with dry age-related macular degeneration or dry AMD, you may be at risk for developing geographic atrophy or GA. GA can be unpredictable and progress rapidly, leading to irreversible vision loss. Now there's something you can do to
slow it down and get it going slower.
Izervay is proven to slow GA progression.
Izervay gets GA going slower.
Izervay or avacincaptad pagel is a prescription eye injection used to treat GA. Don't take it if you have an infection or active swelling in or around your eye. Izervay can cause eye infection, retinal detachment, or increased risk of wet AMD. Izervay may temporarily increase eye pressure. Your vision may be impaired after an eye injection or exam. Don't delay. Ask your doctor about Izervay today.
Izervay gets GA going slower.
Visit Izervay.com. That's IZERVAY.com.
The following is not a contest and is a paid advertisement by Family Vacation Getaways for the purpose of soliciting sales of vacation ownership. For complete details, please visit FVGradio.com. If you want a complimentary stay in Cancun at a luxury resort, then Family Vacation Getaways may have your ticket to paradise. We're giving away a 5-day and 4-night stay to the first qualified 50 callers who can name an animal that lays eggs and is not a bird. An animal that lays eggs and is not a bird. Do you know it? Call now, 800-868-6431, 800-868-6431. You may also be eligible for an exciting bonus vacation to Orlando, Florida for just $398. And don't worry about anything ruining your plans. We can extend your travel up to 18 months. Name an animal that lays eggs and is not a bird, and you may be eligible to get a complimentary Cancun resort stay and an optional bonus vacation to Orlando for just $398. What are you waiting for? Call 800-868-6431. Again, call 800-868-6431 and give us your answer.
The conversation continues right now with Dominique DiPrima on First Things First.
Indeed, you are inside of a Freedmen Friday. People think I say freedom. Every day should be Freedom Day around here, but I say Freedmen. I say that because that's how we, Black Americans, were designated after we were supposedly freed from our enslavement as freedmen. And one of the, people have different factions. Some people like to call themselves different things. I call it Freedmen Friday because specifically that's what we were designated under the Reconstruction when we were ordered to get 40 acres of land and all of that. It was under the banner of freedmen before they retreated from the Reconstruction in this country. So all points of view are welcome. We're talking with Sheila Bates of Black Lives Matter LA, BLM on the policy team, among other things. And Black Lives Matter is not jumping on a bandwagon. Black Lives Matter has been advocating for reparations for quite some time, right, Sheila?
That's absolutely correct. From the beginning, when we started on July 13th of 2013, right? And even prior to that, the people who make up Black Lives Matter and the people who formed the first chapter and formed the organization have absolutely always believed in reparations. We've absolutely been fighting for it in various forms since our inception and continue to do that work. And as that work is actively moving in the state of California, following the creation of the California Reparations Task Force, which we also were absolutely involved in advocating for that and helping to shape and push and pass that bill. And then also the report that came after and the bills that, followed. We have absolutely been involved in this from the beginning. This is not something that, even when we think about Baba Akili, right? He has been working for reparations for 50 plus years. For
those not familiar, Akili is one of the lead organizers for Black Lives Matter LA.
So yeah, it's something that we are not new to this. We're true to this, as they say.
So, Black Lives Matter LA did send a team of folks and helped finance the buses that brought other organizations. There's a real, I would say, coming together of various organizations right now in Southern California and really California wide to take these reparations accomplishments across the finish line, or at least make some progress after the disappointment and the betrayal of August 31st of 2024 when those bills failed to get to the floor. The Freedmen's Bureau was one bill and funding mechanism was another bill. What policies, well, first of all, tell me what is the thinking behind bringing folks up to the Capitol and lobbying like that?
Absolutely. So as you mentioned, this was actually sort of for this iteration of fighting for reparations in California, that was our second trip up to the Capitol. And so in that trip, the idea was really, we went the first day of the opening of the legislative cycle. And the idea was to make it very clear, not only to the CLBC, but to all state legislators that we are on them from day one, literally. And we as a people found this so important that people from all around the state, literally from San Diego, the bottom of California, all the way up the state, including a lot of folks from Los Angeles and some folks up in Northern California, all descended upon the Capitol and made it very clear to everybody. We spoke to we went and visited every legislator and made it clear that our agenda was that, and our expectation this legislative cycle was that they do better than they did last cycle and that they absolutely pass bills this year. And so some of the things that we were fighting for is, because at this point, right, is there's not when we were there were not bills at that point. There were ideas of bills that we wanted people to sponsor, and we also wanted people to know that these are the things that we wanted to advance, and that the expectation was that if you do not carry one of these bills, you absolutely will pass these bills when they make it to your desk. Otherwise, we will be up here every single time at every stage if we know or are concerned in any way, or even just to double check that things will not pass at any juncture of this process.
A couple questions in the chat, but let me ask you the second part that I already said. What are your main policy goals at this point for Black Lives Matter when it comes to reparations?
So we really want to make sure that that the Freedmen's Bureau is created, right? We want to make sure that there is an actual payout of reparations, right? Reparations is a check. Reparations is not programmatic, right? It's not programmatic alone, right? There can be programs that can exist, right? But you don't get to call everything reparations. The things that they were trying to call reparations last year is not how I would define reparations, and I know that's also not how you would define reparations, right? So reparations is monetary, and the other stuff can be added as a bonus, right? So that money gets dispersed, and that we start with our elders, because we want to make sure that while they are here, that they finally get what they've been fighting for and what they deserve, and then we continue to move from there.
And that's why the conversation is happening about a bill to give a universal basic income to descendants, black older Americans, seniors in California.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so a couple strategy points. We only have 2 minutes till news, traffic, and sports, and then we'll keep talking on the other side of that. But Jerry Anderson, legislatively, do we need one comprehensive bill? Would it be better to have an omnibus reparations bill, or do we need to split them up into bite-sized chunks, which is apparently what is happening or trying to happen right now?
That's a great question, and different people have different takes on it. I am for employing all strategies that are possible. We don't want to have bills that are competing with each other, because that doesn't that are doing the same thing, because that doesn't work well. But it's very much It depends. And it's also, we have to remember that the people at the Capitol who are willing to move forward these bills, right, that they're limited. And there is something to be said for the fact that an omnibus bill is absolutely more difficult to pass, right? People are going to get caught up on one little part of it, and that could tank the entire bill. So I absolutely understand why currently they're moving at the Capitol with, chunks, as you call them, right? I believe was what you called them, to break it off in chunks and to move it that way, because that ensures that if there's somebody is having a hang up with one particular part, that we're still maybe able to do something, right? And also there's something to be said for the fact that it divides the attention, right? Because then people have more bills that they have to track. They can't just track this one big bill that's moving that they know is a target and then attack that. They have to split their energy and their resources amongst many other bills that they have to fight all of those simultaneously if they are our opposition. And if they are our opposition, then that is their problem, and we will absolutely come for them.
We're talking to Sheila Bates of Black Lives Matter Los Angeles, the policy team. It's a Freedmen Friday, so it's all about reparations on KBLA Talk 1580.
A safe place to go loud. A great place for progressive politics. KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Bree Wood with 4 Things You Should Know with BIN News. Republican Representative Andy Ogles of Tennessee proposed a constitutional amendment to allow Donald Trump to serve a third term as president, stating Trump needs more time to accomplish his goals. The Nashville, Tennessee school shooter's manifesto revealed inspiration from Adolf Hitler and conservative commentator Candace Owens. Owens cast doubt on its authenticity on social media and criticized opponents for politicizing the tragedy. A federal judge in Seattle, Washington temporarily blocked President Trump's executive order limiting birthright citizenship to children with at least one U.S. citizen or permanent resident parent. At least 5 different lawsuits have been filed over the executive order. And Captain America Brave New World is projected to make at least $90 million in its debut weekend. The film follows Anthony Mackie's Sam Wilson as the new Captain America and opens on February 14th. I'm Bree Wood on the Black Information Network, your home for Black News First.
Visit Chevrolet of Montebello for your 2025 savings. Lease a 2025 Trax LT for $238. 2 at this price. APR rates as low as 0.9% on select models up to 60 months. ChevroletofMontebello.com. Together, let's drive.
At Chevrolet of Montebello.
Is this the title? This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
It was a dominant night Thursday for both of LA's NBA teams. The Lakers beat Boston by 21 at Crypto.com. The Clippers beat Washington by 17 at the Intuit Dome in Inglewood. The 21-point win for the Lakers was their largest over the Celtics since the 2010 NBA Finals. It was also the Celtics' largest loss of the season. Anthony Davis had 24 points, 8 rebounds, and 3 block shots. LeBron had 20 points, 14 rebounds, and 6 assists. James Harden dropped a triple-double to help the Clippers get past Washington. 17 points, 12 rebounds, and 13 assists. UCLA's women's basketball team, number 1 in the country, remained unbeaten after an 84-66 win at Rutgers. 25 points, 13 rebounds, and 5 block shots for Bruins center Lauren Betts. The Bruins are now 19-0, 7-0 in the Big Ten. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
Hey, Mom, I've been meaning to talk to you about some new COVID information I saw online. I read that 3 out of 4 adults in the United States have a high risk factor for severe COVID-19. And Black folks like us with certain conditions like diabetes, heart disease, mental health conditions, or being 50 and older are at high risk.
Boy, you sound like a commercial.
I'm just saying. I know you love your ginger teas and essential oils, but remember, there are treatment options for COVID-19.
I promise if I get sick again, I'll call my doctor to ask about my options.
Joe Montana here. In my football days, I knew the importance of a strong defense. Now I'm sharing how you can help defend your health against pneumococcal pneumonia and invasive pneumococcal disease. Are you 50 or older like me? The CDC now recommends vaccination against pneumococcal disease. Even if you're healthy, your age puts you at increased risk and over 6 times greater risk of hospitalization with pneumococcal pneumonia than adults under 50. Schedule your appointment today at vaxassist.com.
Sponsored by Pfizer.
You say you never give in to a meltdown and never fill your feed with kid photos. You say you'd never put a pacifier in your mouth to clean it and never let them run wild through the grocery store. So when you say you'd never let them get into a car without you there, no, it can happen. 1 in 4 hot car deaths happen when a kid gets into an unlocked car and can't get out. Never happens. Before you leave the car, always stop, look, lock. Brought to you by NHTSA and the Ad Council.
This is a story of the one. As a maintenance specialist for university housing, he knows college students can major in wear and tear. Plus, housing so many students doesn't leave a lot of room to house all the supplies he needs. That's where Grainger comes in. With over 1 million industrial-grade products and fast, dependable delivery, Grainger carries the quality products he needs so he doesn't have to. From a new door hinge to a whole new faucet. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
We're not for everybody, but we're for everybody. You're listening to KBLA Talk 1580.
And we're talking on this Freedmen Friday with Sheila Bates. She's with Black Lives Matter Los Angeles, the policy team. She's an organizer, longtime organizer, and has been working on this reparations piece. So the other question that we've teed up earlier was whether it should be one check on the federal level or whether each agency has to pay out separately. And, we haven't even gotten to a study yet on the federal level. We still even haven't gotten to where California is with H.R. 40. But I would think that it could be both, right? An overall payout. And then because when you look at the California Task Force report, they break it down into different areas of harm. Education, financial institutions, et cetera, et cetera. So that, to me, would some of those, Department of Education, if we still have one, et cetera, et cetera. I could see certain programs, the programmatic piece, being dispersed over agencies. But to your point, the check part is probably one overall program. I don't know. We're speculating right now. We don't know.
I would venture to guess it would probably go the same way as also, but like you said, that study is missing at the federal level, and also wanting to just uplift the fact that there is also research and a study that was done, or rather a report that was released at the city level as well, right? Because the city of Los Angeles recognizes that there's also reparations that are owed just within the city because of those exact departments that we spoke of, right? So this is a problem that exists on every level of government, from the city to, there's talk of the county starting this, right, to the state, to the federal government. And so I believe, like you do, that it absolutely could be both, and that it absolutely should be both. All of those, run the programs and deliver that money. Get those money into the hands of all of us who have been deeply impacted by this and who our ancestors paid the price, right? Our ancestors, this is money that is owed to our ancestors, and unfortunately they are not here to see the benefits of it, but they fought hard and they survived to be able for us to be here, and that then needs to get to us.
Well, in the current environment, we're actually seeing the President of the United States has outlined something that sounds like reparations for white people. He's talking about defunding institutions that have diversity, equity, and inclusion programs, and then taking the money, their endowments or whatever it might be, from those institutions and giving them to white people who feel that they've been harmed by DEI, which does sound like reparations for white people. E.C. Courtney is in the chat saying we're going to fight forever and always for reparations. But in this environment, where we're actually looking at a president who wants to pay reparations to white people, do we just throw up our hands and give up?
I would say absolutely not. And we have to remember that this would be the second reparations for white folks, right? Because reparations were already given to white folks, right? When they literally gave, plantation owners reparations as opposed to giving Black people reparations. And we have to remember, like, the irony of them getting mad at DEI when they also connect it to affirmative action, when the number one benefactor of affirmative action have been white women. And when they want to make it based upon merit, but we can't pretend like legacy admissions, right, do not, and as if nepotism does not exist, that is their own that is something that white people have been doing for generations, right, that allows people who might not be qualified actually to get into positions because their mommy or their daddy is friends with the owner, or because their father or their grandfather went to a university, that all of a sudden they're able to get into a university, but you want to look at us sideways because we are given an opportunity we still have to meet all of the requirements for affirmative action, right? But it's saying that you have to also look at Black people and include Black people in this, in the admission process, and that you can look at race, and you want, diversity within your organization, within your university, and they're upset about that. It really doesn't make any sense, and they want us to forget all of the mechanisms and systems that they have created that do the exact thing that they don't want us to do.
Well, I guess really the question I should have asked is not, do we stop fighting? Because we all know the answer to that, right? We're built for this. Our ancestors' DNA is literally part of the roadmap of who we are, the blueprint, I should say, of who we are. All of that resistance is in our DNA. But I guess the question should have been, how do we fight? Does it make more sense to, like you said, strictly stick to advocating on the city level or the state level or county level? Or do we continue to tee this up to people who just froze the Civil Rights Department of the Department of Justice and have just invalidated all investigations against police and turned any existing agreements over to the judges that were overseeing them, disconnecting the Department of Justice from the enforcement of those? I mean, we're talking about in the past 4 days, he's done an executive order to legalize discrimination, frozen out, dismissed, and will soon fire thousands of Black people who are in those DEI jobs, right? And so it seems sort of like a waste of time to lobby the Trump administration for anything regarding reparations. But what do you say? What's the methodology is the real question.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a really important question, because we don't want to be spinning our wheels and putting resources in places that we maybe shouldn't be. And I'm not saying currently that is the case, but I do think, we are absolutely we were already facing an uphill battle, and we're dealing with Congress that had no desire to move reparations for decades, right? Longer than that, actually. But we are facing a particular opposition in this moment with this administration and with our current iteration of Congress. So I think passing at the federal level is absolutely less likely than before. And I think, putting all of our resources there is not necessarily our best bet at this point. Do I think we should absolutely stop advocating for it? No. I do think that bills should absolutely still be reintroduced, because we can't let them get away with it, right? It doesn't mean that we put all of our energy there, but I think that we still want to make sure that it's clear that this is something that we still believe in and something that we're still doing. And actively working on, but I don't think we need to put as many resources at the federal level. At the state level, absolutely. We need to continue to fight for it, and that's why we were there on the opening day of the legislative cycle. And I think there absolutely should be, more of a focus on the local level as well, because that's where it's a little bit more removed from the Trump administration, and that they also realize that this is where they can do something and where they do have some control in a current political climate where it feels like we don't. And I think at the local level, there might be a little bit less of a resistance, right? Regardless. And the thing is, too, is that as Melina was sort of saying not yesterday, when was she saying that? Melina was saying the other day, too, is that we can't lose sight. Essentially what she was saying, I'm not saying as brilliant as she is, or brilliantly as she did, but she was essentially saying, we can't not push forward our own agenda just because we're also simultaneously trying to put out fires everywhere else, right? And so we know that we're going to have to put out fires at all levels of government.
Yeah, sorry, that was an error.
We want... Oh, good. We're absolutely going to be putting out fires all over the place, and we have to continue to push our agenda. So I think regardless of who's in office and what's happening and the likelihood of it passing, we still need to make sure that we are moving that forward.
Yeah, multitasking. That's what we do. And it's worth pointing out for those who aren't tracking it that Senator Cory Booker and Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley actually did reintroduce that federal reparations legislation to Congress about 10 days ago, calling for a commission to document, and basically what we did in California, H.R. 40, or I guess it's SB 1 in the Senate. They're trying again. So far, I haven't seen any co-sponsors stepping up besides Pressley and Booker, but they are picking up the ball from Sheila Jackson Lee, and is that something we could and should be doing, is pressing our representatives to join with Booker and Pressley on H.R. 40?
Absolutely. Because, I think it shows some solidarity within Congress that is absolutely, important for people to see. And it also doesn't leave, particularly thinking of Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley, who has done so much and is authoring so many powerful and important bills, that we have to make sure that we stand by her when she's continuing to do this work that not everybody's willing to do, right? And so I think it's absolutely important that we do ask other members of Congress to sign on to support the bill, and that we make it loud and clear as people, because we have to remember they work for us, right? Their salaries come from our tax dollars, and that they are beholden to us, even though they like to think that they're not, that absolutely we should.
We are talking reparations because that's what we do on Fridays around here. Sheila Bates is my guest. You're welcome to get in on the convo, 800-920-1580. Yeah, we're unapologetically progressive. Yeah, we're KBLA Talk 1580.
Say the quiet part out loud. KBLA Talk 1580.
Okay, so last time I had insurance, I got hit with huge bills every time I saw the doctor.
You gotta get a plan with low copays and no deductibles. That's what those big bills are. I got a plan through Covered California. Now it doesn't cost so much to go see a doctor.
Seriously?
Yeah, and they have a bunch of options like that, so you can find one that works for you and your cash flow.
I can swing that.
We all have questions. Covered California has answers and can find a health plan that's right for you. Covered California, this way to health insurance.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. The Autopsy Initiative provides a second autopsy free of charge for victims' families who have lost their loved ones due to a police-related death. The services offered through the initiative include the completion of a second autopsy, disclosure of preliminary findings, and a final autopsy report. A police-related death is when an individual is harmed by police officers using deadly force, which results in an individual's death. Police-related death includes in-custody deaths, including those that arise during contact with law enforcement officers during arrest, pursuit, booking, transport, or incarceration. The Autopsy Initiative has a team of board-certified pathologists on call. An autopsy request may be completed by anyone with a close relationship with the victim, which may include the victim's spouse, partner, relative, close friend, or lawyer. To request a free second autopsy for a victim of police violence, please visit knowyourrightscamp.com. That's knowyourrightscamp.com. Then click on autopsy, then click on request. At KBLA, we believe in justice for victims of police violence. We say their names, and we don't black down. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Now that Donald J. Trump has begun a second term as president, please join the Empowerment Congress and KBLA Talk 1580 to examine the question, where do we go from here? Chaos or democracy? At the Charles R. Drew University of Medicine and Science. This Saturday, January 25th, some of LA's top elected officials, Representative Sidney Kamlager-Dove, Assembly members Isaac Bryan and Sade El-Hawari will be on hand for what promises to be a lively and informative conversation. Doors open at 8 a.m. The general session, moderated by Tavis Smiley and broadcast live on KBLA Talk 1580, begins at 9 a.m. The event is free, but seating is limited. Registration is required. Go to the Empowerment Congress website at www.empowermentcongress.org to register. Where do we go from here? Chaos or democracy? Join the Empowerment Congress and KBLA Talk 1580 this Saturday, January 25th. Doors open at 8 a.m. The free program starts at 9 a.m. Registration is required at www.empowermentcongress.org. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
If you love to travel, Capital One has a rewards credit card that's perfect for you. With Venture X, earn unlimited double miles on everything you buy and turn everyday purchases into extraordinary trips. Plus, receive premium travel benefits like access to over 1,300 airport lounges where you just check in and chill out. Open up a world of possibilities with Capital One. What's in your wallet?
Terms apply. Lounge access is subject to change. See CapitalOne.com for details.
This is KBLA Talk 1580, where everybody is somebody and nobody is a stranger. You belong here.
You do belong here, and we're glad that you are here, and we belong here together advocating for reparations on a Freedmen Friday. Sheila Bates is with us. Sheila, if folks want to join with Black Lives Matter Grassroots or BLMLA in advocating for reparations, you've specifically talked about actually the same thing. I know you're uniting with CJEC and other organizations, i.e. universal basic income for our seniors, our elders, this Freedmen's Bureau, the agency which is meant to administer any reparatory programs and or dollars, and a funding mechanism. I think there's some other demands as well. How would they connect with you? How could they get in on this advocacy?
So, great question. Thank you for that. Two things is, one, make sure that they are connected with us on social media. So make sure that they are following us on @BLM Grassroots on all social media platforms, as well as @BLMLA on social media platforms. Additionally, they can sign up to get text messages from us. So they can go to tinyurl.com/BLM Grassroots text. And that will allow them to sign up so they get text messages directly from us. When they use that link, you will receive an automatic text message. Please make sure that you respond yes, so that you are fully logged into the system and that you are able to get updates. But one more time, that link is tinyurl.com/BLM Grassroots text, and our handles are @BLM Grassroots and @BLMLA.
I know the whole policy thing and advocacy is one of your specialties, Sheila Bates, and that is part of what we have to do in this moment, especially in California, but no matter where you are. I mean, it's worth pointing out that there are reparations commissions going up in city after city, even in this moment, even in this extremist moment of our country. Sacramento just put one up. I think St. Louis. It's almost hard to track them. So many are going up. But what is the best way to advocate? I mean, now I'm talking about on the government level. I'm not talking about just like, yes, we need to march, we need to petition, boycott, vote. But as far as moving the levers of power to create these policies, what should we be doing more of?
That's a great question. I think a lot of it is, getting ourselves more educated and educating others, right? Having those conversations and also plugging in with organizations that are already doing the work, right? The answer to this moment is absolutely organizing, right? Because that's where you're not a lone voice and where you can join in with a choir of other folks and you can connect to people who are doing the work and can learn more. I'm constantly learning from all of the brilliant people who I'm surrounded by, that I'm lucky enough to be surrounded by. And, I am able to pass out that knowledge as much as I can, and able to plug in and tap in a way that's makes it a lot easier than trying to do it as an individual person. So I think the power of organizing, right? You were mentioning that all of these bills are and task forces are being created throughout the country. And I think in this moment, it's even more important, right? Because it's a form of resistance of we see you and we see what you're doing, but we're still going to move our agenda forward because this is what we were going to do before. And this is what this moment requires. And we're going to do it regardless. And we're going to fight you on all the other things that we know you're doing. But we're still putting forward what we want and what we deserve as a people.
Asheville, Amherst, Kansas City, St. Louis, Boston, San Francisco, Los Angeles, St. Paul, Evanston, Providence, Boulder, and the list goes on. Detroit, Northampton. It's a lot of folks.
Come on.
Yeah.
Come on.
And so I just want us in this discouraging moment to remember that we are on the move and we're not stopping for reparations at this point in time. What do you think? How do I put this? What do you think the chances are after lobbying and talking with folks in Sacramento and organizing among these various community-based groups? On the one hand, I feel like because of the betrayal by the California Legislative Black Caucus and some missteps on their behalf, as well as some missteps, I will say, on the part of organizers who are angry about that betrayal, it could be a setback for us. And I'm particularly talking about these current demands, the Freedmen's Bureau, the funding mechanism, UBI. Are you optimistic? How are you feeling about our chances of moving any of this actual legislation in the current session?
You know, what I'm falling back on immediately, what came to mind for me is when we fight, we win. And we know that even though that the fight is absolutely worth it, and it brings forward the issues, right, in the same way that all of these other cities and locales doing this is giving courage to others to move it forward, right? And that it's important that regardless of what happens, that we engage in the fight and that we absolutely can win it. We know that we have done things that people thought were unimaginable in the past, and that, I choose to remain optimistic and that we can do it, because otherwise sometimes it feels futile, and that we absolutely have to believe that we can do it and do the work that is necessary to make it happen. And we've, done that from, literally the beginning of this legislative cycle. And I think that shows something powerful and sends a very clear message to the elected officials who are beholden to us. And we just have to stay on them. And I think that we can do it if we do the work.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. Messing around on Google, AI will tell you there's just a handful of cities. Boy, these billionaires and their algorithms, you got to watch it. But to your point, I mean, it's educating ourselves and our families. It's a long report. It's 1,200 pages. Maybe you can't read that. There's a 60-page executive summary from California. There's a short executive summary from LA. Every city has reports that have finished them. Some are still working on them. But it's also us educating our electeds, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So what does that look like?
Absolutely. It's having conversation, it's contacting them, right? And it's also because what we're dealing with is a lot of misinformation and disinformation, wherein that our opposition is absolutely giving them different information and incorrect information to try and discourage them from supporting this type of legislation. And so we have to counter the misinformation and disinformation of our opposition, and we need to make a clear and compelling argument, which we are great at, and really do that narrative storytelling.
No, you're right. We are great at it. And you're right. It would be nice. And tiny silver lining, usually when the repression gets really bad, our artists step up. So I'm going to encourage any of our artists that are listening or engaged is that that's one of the ways we educate, and reparations is an area where we can win, and there's a lot of work to do, not just educating white folks or legislators, but actually black people. I can't believe the things people say to me.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we got a minute here. Sheila Bates, what do you want to leave us with when it comes to this Freedmen Friday and reparations?
Tap in, do the work, organize. White folks, if you are listening, it is your responsibility to make sure that this also happens. Black folks, we got you. Tap in. Let's organize and let's move this. We know that when we fight, we win. Sign up to get text messages at tinyurl.com/BLM Grassroots and follow us on social media at BLM Grassroots. And just deeply appreciate you, Sister Dominique, and looking forward to being able to tell future generations that we won reparations.
Yeah, in from inside the belly of the beast, in probably one of the worst administrations or series of worst administrations ever. Sheila Bates, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you.
Don't forget to tap in at blmgrassroots.org everywhere they are, or get text tinyurl.com, BLM Grassroots text. We've got a potpourri for you next hour. We're going to take a levity break and look at how to level up in the entertainment industry with some women that have a book about that. And we're going to talk to Sheila Hines, the auntie of Waukesha Wilson. And speaking of things we can do, legislation on the move in the name of Waukesha Wilson. All that next on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Bree Wood with 4 Things You Should Know with BIN News. Republican Representative Andy Ogles of Tennessee proposed a constitutional amendment to allow Donald Trump to serve a 3rd term as president, stating Trump needs more time to accomplish his goals. The Nashville, Tennessee school shooter's manifesto revealed inspiration from Adolf Hitler and conservative commentator Candace Owens. Owens cast doubt on its authenticity on social media and criticized opponents for politicizing the tragedy. A federal judge in Seattle, Washington temporarily blocked President Trump's executive order limiting birthright citizenship to children with at least one U.S. citizen or permanent resident, projected to make at least $90 million in its debut weekend. The film follows Anthony Mackie's